Okay, well, we've got members of the 4 Watts CB Club here today to tell us all about Citizens Band Radio and their club and what have you. And why don't we just begin by talking about memories of Ackworth? And did you all grow up in Ackworth?
I partially did.
Partially?
Yes.
Okay, well, Dallas, why don't you begin talking about when you came to Ackworth?
Okay. My dad was in the military, and we traveled till '63. And then after he got out of the military, we lived in the community of Brookhaven. And then he bought almost an acre of land up here on the lake. Uh-huh. And we moved to mobile home and all up here. So in '64, I started coming up here every weekend. And then in '70, while I was in Vietnam, they sold the place in Atlanta and moved up here full time. Mm-hmm. And from that time on, I was here. You
were in Vietnam for a year?
About 9 months. I came home early.
In 1970?
Mm-hmm. 69 and 70.
Wow. Ernestine, did you grow up here?
I did. Mr. Price was my 7th grade history teacher.
Okay.
And his wife at that time was my English teacher in the 7th grade. Miss Rusk and Mr. Rusk lived here. He was an attorney and she was a teacher, was my 2nd grade teacher. But my 1st grade teacher was Miss Addix, and that was my daughter's 1st grade teacher. Mm. So it was full circle. Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
What memories do you have of Ackworth from those days?
Oh, gee. It may sound funny, but I loved riding the school bus to school. It was a quiet little town, a nice place to live, very friendly, not a wealthy town, but yet a really nice place to live. I really liked it here. I'm glad I grew up here. I'm proud of it.
Mr. Lacy, what about you? Did you grow up in Ackworth?
I did. We moved to Ackworth when I was in the 6th grade. I mean, 1st grade.
1st grade.
At 46. Daddy was working in Warner Robins for the Air Force Base during the Second World War. Mm-hmm. We settled here when he got out of that. Mm-hmm. And we lived in town here for about, 3 years. And then he bought a farm out on Rural Route 1, still Ackworth. Uh-huh. So when I married, I moved back into town in Ackworth. Mm-hmm. Been here ever since.
What kind of memories do you have of old Ackworth?
Well, my transportation was bicycling, like a lot of kids. Mm-hmm. I would ride to town on Saturday and go to the theater and buy popcorn and stuff and ride the bicycle back home. That's my fondest memory, was touring town on a bicycle.
Okay. Now, Chief Dennard, you lived out Roberts Road, if I remember correctly.
That's correct, yeah. Lived actually off of Piedmont Road, which and Bells Ferry Road, which Roberts Road had a dead end intersection there at Bells Ferry. And so that's where I grew up. But my fondest or most prevalent memory of Ackworth involved these folks and coming to town when the 4 Watt CB Club initiated.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, Johnnie, why don't you talk about how the 4 Watt CB Club came about?
Okay, I got into the CB radio early, before the popularity phase or whatever you call it. I worked for a company that had 24-hour record service, and we had two-way radio dispatched. Uh-huh. And of course, I was familiar with a two-way radio, so I got the CB to go in my personal car, and where they could contact me, if I wasn't there and on duty. Mm-hmm. And I got a base station and set it up at the house. Mm-hmm. And then we got to know people, and everybody went by handles instead of names, so we didn't know who we was talking to. So there's 4 families decided to get together face to face in my basement. And
4 families?
Yeah. And one of them I knew, personally, and the other two we got to know then. And that very first night in the basement, they said, well, we need a club where we can get other CBers, to meet and so forth. So we wound up naming it that night.
Okay.
And
where did the name come from?
I come up with a name because we wanted to, if we're going to have a club, be recognized by the FCC as a good club and everything. And that was the maximum wattage you could have on a citizen band radio. 4 watts.
Okay.
So we named it the 4 Watt CB Club. About the second meeting, we made officers, and none of us had been in a club, so we didn't know really what we was doing at that time. But it grew in a hurry. I mean, we was talking on the radio, we got a CB club, so we started meeting in this very building downstairs when it was a bank. They let us have the community.
City Hall when it was a bank?
Yeah, they let us have the community room downstairs once a month. And first thing you know, we had 40 members and then 100 members.
And this was 1974 that it started?
Yeah, and so I learned the word benevolence when we was setting this thing up. I'd never heard that word before. So we set up a benevolence CB club to help people. And
So from the very beginning, that was the purpose?
Yeah, that was the purpose when we chartered and got the nonprofit 501c. That was the purpose of the club, benevolence club. And some of the early things we did, I remember the men on Saturday taking time out and we'd cut elderly people's grass, mostly widow women that lost the husband.
So you all were pretty young at that time?
Yeah.
All of you?
We'd take it time out.
Real young.
I mean, like you were in your 20s maybe at that time, or thereabouts?
Yeah, so we'd get out and cut grass in the beginning, helping people, and it grew from that. The club was born here in Acworth, like I say, but like the post office routes that goes in 4 counties, our membership spread out, into the 4 counties, coming to Acworth to the CB Club.
Who were some of those original members?
Well, I mix up handles and names and everything, but we had some upstanding members that helped us charter it. They was familiar with laws and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And we had business people. And,
Right. Well, were the Godfrey's original members?
they come in pretty early. They wasn't in the chartering part of it.
Yeah.
Okay.
We came in right after they got it set up, chartered.
And when I was talking about it growed fast, they come.
Okay. Okay. Well, why don't you all talk about the history of citizen band radios in general? When did that start, and why, and how long did it last?
I think ironically, I'm a police officer, and I think the reason that it started is when the gas crisis came along and they lowered the speed limit on the interstates from 70 to 55. That the truck driver community needed a way to keep up with where the police were setting up and try to avoid avoid speeding tickets. So that is really how it started. How the craze began to grow is that community of truck drivers using those radios to report where the Smokies were on the interstates.
So truck drivers didn't have anything like a CB radio before that?
No, if they did, they would have been far and few between. And so that was a way for them. They all started putting them in their trucks and communicating. And then, and as I mentioned, my dad was a truck driver. So from our perspective, it was always interesting to hear him talk on the radio. And he had one installed in his pickup truck as well. So I got interested in it, and the next thing you know, we had a base station in our house, and so you would find a lot of other families were starting to grab a hold of that idea, and the next thing you know, you had a lot of folks with citizens band radios. You might liken it to the days back then as it was like cell phones are now. Everybody had one. It was the craze of the time.
Cell phone, isn't
That's
it?
exactly right.
Exactly.
Did y'all have anything you wanted to add to that on the history of it?
It's pretty good.
Well, that's pretty much everything. I mean, we got a mobile first, and then I bought a cheap base station because I couldn't really afford a good one. And as time went on, I started making a little more money. I bought me a good base station, and I bought a set of Moonraker antennas to go on top of the house,
Right.
well, on top of a pole. And we just, we could talk everywhere.
When I know my wife had one in her car, and so I gather a lot of people were putting them in their cars in those days. Maybe for the same purpose of avoiding the police traps on the road, or
Well, and I think
That and just communicating.
yeah,
Just communicate.
just it was just fun.
It's fun.
And camaraderie.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah, my mother was in her 50s, I guess, back then, and she wanted one put in her car, and I put it in her car.
well, I mean, it was fun to listen to the truck drivers and hear what was going on.
Another thing about the 4-Watt CB Club, from the very beginning, I don't think all clubs is that way even to yet, but we made everything fun. If it's a fundraiser, we done it in a fun way and enjoyed it.
Yes.
And when we was out helping people, we'd laugh and cutting up, and it was just a fun thing to be in. This club was one of the most fun things I've ever had in my life. And I've since been in other clubs like car clubs and stuff.
Right.
I mean, we have fun, but not like the 4-Watt CB Club did. We made it fun.
We were trailblazers.
Well, now you talked about cutting grass for the widows in the neighborhood and what have you. When did you start doing the coffee breaks?
Well, I can tell you about one coffee break. It's sort of summing up what we did in the coffee breaks. We had a club member that had a baby, and it was premature and had to stay in the hospital a little extended time. They didn't have no insurance. So Easter was right there, and we had a coffee break to help them pay their hospital bill. Now this coffee break, being around Easter, we got a lot of volunteers, even outside the club, like the business people here in town donated door prizes. And there's one barbecue place, which I believe was in Marietta, donated a big tub of barbecue for his cost, a couple of bucks or whatever.
Right.
And so we had a grocery store donated buns. We sold barbecue sandwich, or nothing was sold. It's really for donations. Everything in there is for donation. And stuffed toy place across the railroad over here. They put 2 big cardboard boxes of stuffed rabbits, and they done it by head count, not by size, and told us what we used. We could pay when we come back and bring what we didn't use back. And he was charging like $1.50 per stuffed toy. Well, they was little ones like you'd put in a crib with a little baby, They was what I call teddy bear size, which was the majority of it. We put a clothesline up there at that coffee break and pinned them rabbits all over the place. And when anybody donated any kind of money, they'd get a rabbit. We made sure every kid got a rabbit. Well, there was one giant rabbit. It was life size. So we raffled it off and sold tickets for that big rabbit. Had him on display. Well, my son won that raffle, and I felt bad because I was part of the thing. I said, "Son, you want to donate that back?" No. And everybody jumped on me. "No, don't take that boy's rabbit." Now, go a little bit in the future. He was about 10-year-old at the time. When he got grown, made it in the world, good job and everything, he bought a new Corvette. He went to McDonald's one night. At the speaker, he asked if they had a carrot milkshake. They said no. And he said, "Well, they take vanilla." Well, he put that rabbit up in his lap. He let the seat all the way back. That rabbit camouflaged him. He put his arm under that paw of that rabbit with the money. And when he drove up there with the other one on the steering wheel, the girl just squealed and said everybody in the restaurant had to come look at the drive-in and wondered rabbit driving a Corvette. But that's fun that he carried out from all this stuff. Everything was fun at what we did. But that coffee break raised enough money not only to pay that hospital bill, it put a lot in our treasury from left over. Because truckers would stop and we'd set up a CB radio, and it was over on 41 here when all the traffic was over there. And it was a big day.
Well, I was going to ask, how did you advertise?
It was CB radio.
That's CB.
CB
Yeah, we'd set up
radio.
a base station. And
Set up a base station on
somebody's
site.
on it the whole time. You know, we'd take turns
Loading
getting
it.
on it and tell you, hey, stop here at 41 and Blue Springs Road. We got coffee break going
Blue
on.
Springs Road, is that what
Yeah,
it was?
it was.
Yeah.
You come in and get a free cup of coffee, but
Yeah.
everybody made donations.
Yeah,
you know.
everybody made donations.
Oh, you gave the coffee away.
Yeah,
And
it's
then,
coffee break.
It's a coffee break, so they could rest.
I
If it's
see.
fatigued or anything, you could, because we was hitting mainly the trucker market, because 41 on the weekends was bumper to bumper. I mean, from Marietta to Cartersville, 411.
There was no 75.
Is bumper to bumper,
Right,
you know. And we just had a prime location right there.
right. And so the other cars, if they didn't have a CB radio, they didn't know about it.
Well, they'd come up and still come in though.
Or
They would check
may-
it out.
May have seen you there and
You'd
come in
see it and
or follow
what's
the
going on
truckers.
over there, you know.
Yeah, that's right. How long did you all do that? Did you have a lot of coffee break?
Well,
We had quite a few.
We had quite a few coffee breaks where we had something called the Jamboree also. And Jamboree was where other clubs would get involved. And they would come in from other counties
Right.
and join us. And that was usually in an afternoon. And we'd always have an abundance of food that they could eat, but we would have entertainment, bands or DJs, or we would have square dancers or things like that. And the majority of our time, our fabulous MC was Mr. Wayne over here. He was,
Okay.
yes, he was and most of the time he was our MC. So he was destined to be out there in the front from the
You
beginning.
say Mr. One, but you were like 12 years old at the time.
Yeah.
But he was good at the job,
He
so
was.
he got the job. Yeah.
Fantastic. Did you have a deep voice at age 12?
No, actually, no. I don't think my voice had
He was
changed
just
yet.
he was just good at entertaining and capturing the audience. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Now, you all did car washes also?
We did car washes, to raise money, but we also got together a lot for almost every holiday. We love to eat, so we would get together with, and everyone would bring dishes for like a potluck supper. We had Valentine's Day get-togethers, Christmas parties, and the Santa would always come, do egg hunts. For Easter, we always included the family. It was
Yeah, it was
always
a
family
family
oriented.
affair.
It was
Now, where
so
did you have your parties?
various places.
Different places.
The beach house we used quite a few times. When Coates and Clark's owned JD's place there, we used that
Used that
facility.
building,
JD's Barbecue?
Yeah,
And Eli Whitney School?
Yeah, exactly.
just a lot of different places. Down at the beach, under pavilions, we cooked out and did picnics there. But we did a lot just for the club to get together and just celebrate
Yeah.
being a part of the
We'd
city
also
club.
have outings up on the lake during the summertime.
Yeah,
Okay.
done that.
Several of the members had boats. We'd bring our boats up there and we'd cook out up on the lake and people'd ski or ride what was that horse? Jack and horse or
somebody, yeah.
some kind. He built some kind of structure on skis.
Okay.
And he called it the Bucking Bronco or something and it was like riding a wild Bronco horse.
Yeah.
I mean, it'd start
Behind the
this mess
boat.
here
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
very few people could hang on to it.
How about that? Well, now, spook houses, were that for Halloween?
Yes, sir.
Yes, they'd run for at least a week, sometimes longer, and it would be to raise money.
Right.
We were some of the first spook houses out there that really brought a lot of attention to spook houses. We would have one particular spook house. We had 7 rooms, I remember that. And we all participated and did the black lights and all kinds of scary things. We'd have guides. And it raised money so that we could help people. And we did that to probably 5 or 6 spook houses.
So everything you did was for fun, but also to raise money for
yes.
causes.
Yes. We had one room with a Frankenstein in it. We had a big old transformer. I think Johnnie got us that transformer, didn't you, Johnnie? Didn't you get us that transformer?
Yeah.
And we'd put coat hanger wire on, and it'd bzz and pop and bzz and pop. And then Frankenstein would come alive, and he'd go toward the.
Frankenstein was Wayne.
And then we had one where they'd cut a lady's leg off.
A guillotine.
Well, we had a guillotine, had a styrofoam head with a mask on it, and in the little spring-loaded thing. When that guillotine come down, it'd flip that head a rolling. It was so much fun. We enjoyed it.
Good minds were there. People that were very creative and come up with these ideas, and it just worked. And everybody just chimed together with no problems, no qualms. It was fabulous.
Mm-hmm. Tell me about donkey softball games. How did that work?
You had a donkey on all 3 bases and one at the batting range and one with the pitcher. Okay. And everyone was on a donkey, and you had a shovel for your bat, a big wide shovel, and the ball was about yay big. Okay. So when you hit the ball...
But you're not on the donkey.
You're on the donkey.
You're on. No,
I'm sorry, you're not on the donkey. You're not on the donkey when you hit it.
Okay.
You hit the ball, and then it doesn't go very far. Everybody's trying to get their donkey to get up there to get the ball, and you have to jump on the donkey to go to the bases. Okay. Needless to say, the donkeys were stubborn.
Yeah.
And it was just a lot of fun to do that.
Yeah. I don't think the donkeys were really into softball.
They was into whatever they wanted to do.
But it was hilarious. It was the funniest thing I've ever done.
You could not get them to go straight to the base. They went their own direction they wanted to go. And then the people that's trying to get the ball, they're on their donkeys trying to get him to the ball so they can throw and get him out.
So they can jump off, grab the ball, get back on, and throw it. And they would make it occasionally.
Now, how did you raise money doing this? You had to pay so much to play in the game?
Well, no, we had to pay for the donkeys to come out.
Yeah.
It was an organization. We had to pay for that. And then we would charge ticket price to come and watch this hilarious.
To come and watch.
And it was down at Kenworth Park.
Yes.
We did this at Kenworth.
Okay. Okay. Now, I know that you supported some children's homes, among other things.
Calvary was one of them.
Calvary. Okay. So you did a lot of things for individuals, but also for organizations.
Right, for children's organizations.
For children's organizations. Okay.
Well, and then we help families, of course. And we just, anybody that needed help that reached out to us, we would try some way to help.
Okay, so people would approach you and say, we've got some medical bills that we can't pay, and you do a fundraising.
One thing about that, people back then didn't ask for free help and stuff near like they do now.
Right.
They would sit and suffer, and so it would depend on a neighbor or a friend or somebody to clue us in on some of the people that needed help. Because people didn't just come knocking on your door and say, I need some help, It was a different time than what it is now.
Yeah.
So we had to hunt people.
Yeah, so you had some officers that made the decisions.
We had a benevolence club that had a committee and a chairman, and they would research the people before we jumped in to help them, and interview them and stuff.
Were you all organized like 501c3s now?
Yes,
you
sir.
were a 501c3?
Yes, sure.
So people can donate and take it off their income tax?
Right, exactly.
Exactly.
Right.
I don't know that they did it that way back then. They just donated.
They wasn't worried about it back then.
They really wasn't worried about it.
And everybody was generous, usually.
No one ever asked for letters. Like today, I'm in another organization, Alatoona Charities, and when people donate stuff for us, they want a letter so they can take it off on their tax.
Yeah.
And I don't mind doing that. I've got a canned letter I print out and give to
Sure.
them, you know.
Sure.
But back then, we didn't
Yeah.
go through that.
I think maybe with the new tax law, they're probably doing that less now than they were before.
Yeah, because they've cut a lot of the stuff out that you could claim in the past, you know.
And also the standard deduction's so much higher now.
Right.
Didn't we play the basketball at
Yeah.
against Z93 at the Cavalry? Was that what we played?
No, it was
No.
at the high school gym.
At the high school
Was it
gym,
high
yeah.
school? At
Talk
North
about
Cobb?
that. Z93 was a radio station.
Right.
And
Wayne was the big basketball player.
they
He
were
was
always
good.
playing, they were always challenging somebody to play basketball.
In the community, you know, they was all 360 degree around Atlanta, rock and roll station, and they would make big things on air about it on Monday.
They brag
Oh,
about
they'd
their-
brag
Because
about
they
their
were
wins.
winners, yeah.
I think we're the only ones they didn't beat.
Well, what they didn't realize is we were going to take it serious, and so we put a team together and put some players on the team, and we gave Z93 a run for their
So
money.
you brought in some ringers to,
Yeah, we did. We did. I'm
Okay.
not sure they were CB radio operators. All of them. They were some basketball players. On
Was
that team,
interested
and so-
in winning.
Yeah,
and,
the first
okay,
and
so-
only one to win. But
so did they, on the radio, did they admit that
Oh,
you won?
they did. They had
Yeah, they
to.
had to eat crow.
They did?
Yes.
we were 66 and they were 47.
47. Wow, that was a blowout.
Yeah.
So you played basketball games as well as the donkey the donkey baseball or softball.
Softball.
But you also played basketball games as a
Well-
fundraiser.
The one.
Just that one.
The one, but because the radio station advertised it, it was a great turnout. It was a wonderful turnout, so that helped to raise a lot of money. And you had to be a charitable organization to play them. You had to
Sure.
have a reason
You had
to
to
be
be a
raising the money.
501c3 in
Yeah.
order to play.
Okay. Okay. So you all won the game. What brought the CB era to a close? I mean, cell phones don't really come in until the 21st century, do
Well, they were in the 90s, I guess.
they? Were they?
Probably early
Some people
90s.
had them and-
Yeah, the people that could afford them had them.
At least the dumb phones,
And,
the cheap ones.
But they were few and far between. Like the first one we ever had was, what, 89, 90, somewhere in there.
Something
You mean your
like
last,
that.
your
Cell
last
phone
one?
that far
Oh, your
back?
first cell phone.
First
We
one,
had
yeah.
we had a Radio Shack portable because we didn't want to have one mounted in the car because we had two cars and might want to move it from one to another.
I see.
And
A magnetic antenna
magnetic antenna went out on the car. And
with a cord that
Yeah.
hooked to the.
Okay.
yeah, and it was what was the first?
We
first minute
paid-
was
25 cents a minute.
no, it was 35 cents.
Oh, 35 cents. Oh, and $25 for
$25 a month plus 35 cents a minute for
That's a
airtime.
lot.
That's a
That was a
lot.
lot. We didn't use it much. It was for
wouldn't think so.
emergencies.
Okay.
And she had to use it one time, and it was fantastic.
But I think you all were way ahead of me. I don't remember it that far back.
Yeah, they were rich. They had one early
Oh,
on.
yeah.
I guess so.
Yeah,
Well,
right.
I
But I
was
think to-
technologically challenged.
To answer your question, I think the CB radio thing really in the 70s when it was at the craze, I think it really it was, you might classify it as a fad. It came in quick and it came in strong, and then it just waned over time, and by the early 80s, I think it was really
84,
starting
85 is
starting to really slow
slow
down.
down.
So
And
you had at least a decade of it.
I would say that's a good timeline to put on it.
Johnny, you were trying to say something a little bit earlier.
My first cell phone was not called a cell phone. It's called a mobile phone.
right,
Yeah.
exactly.
And they put a big old transmitter in the trunk and then run a cable all the way up and had a big old speaker on the dash, a microphone up on the sun visor, and had a permanent antenna melted back to back. Well, when I thought I was getting up in a real class is when I didn't have to have the talker part tied to it. You put it in the cradle, and you could get out and walk 40 feet around your car and still talk.
Okay.
So you could go to somebody's door and still have the mobile phone. And that was the beginning of being called cell phones when you could.
About when was that?
Well, that was in the 80s sometime.
Was it?
Last of 80s probably.
Wow.
And then graduated on up to what we got today. My first one that wasn't tied to the car was as big as a walkie-talkie.
Well, ours was a telephone receiver. You literally picked up a receiver.
You had a receiver like on a telephone in the house.
and put it up to your ear.
Wow. Okay.
But they come out with what was called bag phones.
Yep.
Bag phone?
Yeah, they had a battery and a transmitter and everything in a bag.
Yeah.
You can put it in your car or take it out.
Yeah.
Okay.
You had a mic you'd pull out and talk on the mic. And
I skipped the bag phones.
We did.
Yeah, we did too.
I had so much invested in the car phones, I waited till they got the walk around.
Wow. What do truck drivers do nowadays? They don't, if they don't have CB radios, they just have their cell phone in the truck?
All of them have cell phones, but they still have CBs.
Do they?
And it's mainly the truckers that use them. They used to be on channel 19 all the time, but now they got several channels they go to. Because 19, everybody knew it, and they would get on there and start jabbering with them, and there's too much traffic, so they privately moved to another channel.
Might be fun to have a CB radio in your car now to listen to.
I've got one in my
Do
truck
you?
today,
You
yes.
still have one?
Yes.
All right. I had a note about Pioneer Days. How does that fit in with this?
Well, it doesn't fit in with the Fort White
doesn't.
CB Club. It was started by the downtown development here in the early 80s. And they worked it 2 years. Second year, they asked Altoona Charities to help them, like 84, 85, something like that, I think. It's been a long time. But then, so we helped them the second year they did it. And I think Lacy's Drugs, what's his name? The druggist.
Ben Flanagan.
Ben Flanagan and his wife was actually the one that actually started putting Pioneer Days together the way the way I understand it. And then it just overwhelmed them, and it was small then. It was very small. And then the third year that it happened, we were the ones doing it, and we're still doing it today in Carsville.
Okay. Also, Horizon Field, was that associated with Altoona Charities?
That's the car club that we're in.
Oh, the Lake City Cruisers?
And also Altoona Charity donated money to that.
Okay. Could y'all talk about, because that's kind of pretty neat, I think, that talk about what the Horizon Field is and how it came
what it
about.
is.
Yeah, let Wayne tell that, because that was their project after we got it up and got it chartered and got it built and all. The police department every year would do a fundraiser to support it.
Okay.
Well, the Horizon Field is a field that's specially designed with a synthetic surface on it where any child can come and play. Any child with any physical disability can come, and their family can come with them, and mom and dad for just an hour maybe can just sit on the stands and watch their child that normally would not be able to play in an organized sports league get out there and have fun just like their brother and sister. And it was uniquely located within our sports complex as well, where all the other kids are playing ball. So volunteers from around the community would come together and partner with these kids and help them in whatever way they needed to get around the bases or hit the ball. And those other folks that come in and partner with us kids, they come from local churches and the schools and just other community members. And organizations like Altoona Charities were in on the front end of that, and they bought into that vision and provided some seed funding, if you will, and still ongoing today through the car club. Their entry fees are still going to to the special needs ball field. The police department jumped on board. This was a community effort, and the police department jumped on board and developed a program called Covering the Bases, where we used our notoriety in the community, if you will, to get the word out about the special needs field, which ultimately became known as the Horizon Field, and started with a program where we would actually walk the bases or run the bases for 24 hours straight and look for sponsorships. And so we had corporate sponsors and individual sponsors, and to date, the police department's raised over $400,000 for the Horizon Field. And again, it's not just the police department, it's a community effort. It's a lot of organizations that have come together to make this field be a reality.
Where did the idea originate?
For the
field?
For the field, it originated within the city and families that.
Well, Marlon Longacre was a big person. He's the one that came to me and sold the idea to us at Altoona Charities. And we jumped right on board right off the bat. Yeah. I mean, our first check to him was $1,000 in, what was it, early 80s? Wasn't it?
No, it wasn't.
Late 80s?
Yeah, it was more recent than that.
90s?
Yeah.
90s?
So,
well, whenever
you're looking early 2000s, late 90s, this concept started coming about.
And, it was, I mean, it was to me, it was no question.
Yeah.
I mean, we was going to be fortunate enough, because it's really a Northwest Georgia field. Anyone in any special needs child in Northwest Georgia, they've got 3 of them now, I think, north, east, and south.
Well, there's several, and they're starting to come up. It's catching a hold. The need is there.
The need is there, and you know, once they brought it to us, man, we jumped right on the wagon.
Well, I was going to ask how unique this was to Ackworth, because it sounds like an idea that ought to be everywhere.
Well, it is.
And it's spreading everywhere now.
Yep.
But Ackworth was kind of on the front end.
Cutting edge.
Definitely pioneers in this area. So, and you asked how did it come about, and there were families that came together, a lot like Johnnie described from the 4 Watt CB Club, with common issues, and their issue and mission, if you will, was raising special needs children.
Right.
And came together, and the city of Ackworth jumped on board with that, as did other charitable organizations, and saw that need and worked together to make this become a reality.
I know we did an interview with Steve Prather earlier, and his daughters.
Marina, yeah.
Well, Chief, why don't you talk a little bit about how the 4 Watt CB Club maybe influenced your life and, helped you become who you became?
Sure, absolutely. As we mentioned earlier, I was young, a preteen, when I met these folks, and a lot of these families took me under their wing and, showed a lot of love and support, and they demonstrated benevolence to me at that early age, and influenced me in a way to want to give back to a community. And as I said, had a lot of fun doing it. So my dad, I mentioned, was a truck driver, and I wouldn't classify him as an absentee dad, but he was gone a lot. And so there were a lot of men that influenced me, that kind of took me under their wing. And you're looking at 2 of them right here that influenced me in a very strong way, and gave me the opportunity to be in positions of leadership at a young age, and that all developed. So I give credit to these gentlemen and others, for taking time to spend with a young guy, and it's one of those unintended consequences when you're giving back, and in so many ways you don't realize how you're affecting others. Even you think you're on a mission to help Calvary's Children's Home or some other needy family, but you're influencing others, because at the end of the day, people are watching, and in this case, you had a 12-year-old watching. And saw how these men carried themselves, and the maturity and the integrity that they had, and the heart to give back to a community, and it impacted me.
Could you talk a little bit about the Ackworth Police Department and the community policing?
Sure. I'm a little biased, but I believe that the Ackworth Police Department is the greatest police department in the state of Georgia, and I believe that we have, as a result of some of the influences these folks have had on me, we do a lot of community. And as a matter of fact, when I interview new officers who are coming on board, a spiel that I give them is that we're in the people business. Yes, we we're in the business to enforce laws, but first and foremost, we're in the people business, and we're going to love on people. And so that's what we do. We love on this community in a lot of ways. And sometimes people need to go to jail, and I always get a smile out of these new officers. Sometimes the people that we're loving on need to go to jail, and we're just going to love on them all the way to the jail. So don't confuse that with our love for community. Don't confuse that with a desire not to do our job. We're going to do our job to keep this community safe and crime free. But our police department, I believe, sets the tone and sets the pace in the police community for community policing. As a matter of fact, we have other agencies and department heads will call and ask myself and members of our command staff, how would you handle this? Right. How would you go about dealing with this in the community? So to me, that's an accolade. That is a sign of success when you have other leaders in the police business asking how you would handle this in the community. So we're trendsetters, and just like we were back in the 70s with this club, and I believe that the Ackworth Police Department is a trendsetter today, in part as a result of the efforts of these people who are much, much older than I am. So
you got some gray hair there.
That's right.
We're still much, much older.
they have worn their age well. I've been in the police business, so my age shows.
Well, Ms. Godfrey, I think you wanted to talk about some of the members that have passed on.
Yes, we probably have the majority of our members that have passed, and they were such an influence on all of us. We as a team, they just his mother was one of them, and she's gone. Fabulous cook, and she was such a sweet, sweet, sweet lady, and many others that just put their heart and soul into the club, and they enjoyed it, and we enjoyed being with them and their leadership, because some of them were older than we were at that time, was helpful to us in keeping us going. And since the Fort White CB Club, that was our first experience in community giving. That's all we've done since we've been in the Fort White CB Club. We've continued on with other organizations and doing the same thing and believe in it very strongly.
When we joined it, we hadn't been married but 3 years.
Is that right?
Yeah.
We married in 71, 74. We joined the CB Club.
All right.
And ever since then, we've been involved with some type of charity, sometimes 2 and 3 at one time.
But it was our beginning.
Yeah.
Well, and 1 year away from a 50th anniversary.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
And like Wayne was saying, we've done, I think this was our 13th year of doing the cruise nights here in town.
Okay.
And all of our funds that we take in, we take out whatever we have to spend for flowers and that type of stuff, and it goes to the Horizon Field.
All of it.
And this year we was only able to have 2 cruise nights, and because we had the last one rained out, we gave them $1,000 this year. But over the years we've given them how much? 12,000.
About 12,000, believe it or not.
Over the last 13 years. And when we first started, we was charging $1 a car. And dollars don't go very far that way, you know. But back then, that's what the economy was, you know.
Right.
And this year, we're finally going up to $5 a car, because all the costs for putting that on down there has risen probably 40-50% since it began. So, you know, we need to up the ante some so we can give them more money. And as long as we're able to do it, we're going to do it.
Well, I wonder if you all will reflect a little bit about, there's obviously a lot of volunteer effort in Ackworth that is doing a lot of good works. How unique is this to Ackworth, or is it just something typically American or typically human to form these groups and take care of needs in a community? What do you think?
I think it's typical people, good people. It doesn't matter where they live. Good people will do it, and they'll find a way to come together with other good people and create a good environment and great help.
Caring people.
Yeah, caring people.
Yeah, Ackworth still has that community feel. And I think there are, I agree with what Ernestine said. It's, I think it's inherent in people, but I think that can be lost. And I think Ackworth has done a good job of preserving that within this community. This community is absolutely something special. So when I travel around the state visiting with other police chiefs and in our associations, I tell the story of Ackworth, and it's almost a jaw-dropping experience as to what we have here in Ackworth. So it's very unique, and it spans from the leadership, from our mayor and our city council, to the members of the community who have that heart to give back. And it's a very unique place to be, and very proud to be a part of it.
All right. Well, I was just looking at my watch, and we've been going about 45 minutes or so, I guess. Is there anything that we haven't covered that you want to add to the interview?
You think of anything, Johnny?
We did forget about the parade. The fabulous parade that we had. We always participated in the parades.
We always built floats for the parade.
Yeah, we did. We built the floats. But there was one particular parade, and we're so honored that we had Johnnie on board with it.
Yeah.
We had 6 of our gentlemen that, of course, they were beautiful in their own way, but we dressed them in women's bathing suits with combat boots and wigs, and sent them down Main Street, Ackworth. And Johnnie was one of them. And we have pictures. We do. That we made the Atlanta Constitution and the Journal.
Okay.
And it was the most hilarious thing. People were falling to their knees, dying laughing at these guys.
Bathing beauties.
Yeah, bathing beauties.
So
we stood on that stage proudly, didn't we?
we chose most of our senior men that were in the Fort White CB Club to be on the float, and it was a fabulous float, and it.
Dallas didn't do that?
Oh, yes.
Yes,
Oh, you did?
Right there in the middle of it. Yes, sir.
This was an event that the future chief of police did not participate in.
You were too young. You were too young at the time.
Yeah, he was too young.
But it was fun. It was funny to see it, and it did make the paper, the Atlanta Constitution and Journal.
The oldest member, he had a beard and everything. He was a truck driver. Named White Black. He's done ice. Made him queen. He had to wear a crown.
And carry the flowers in the sash.
Yeah.
Okay.
But you'll have to see the pictures.
I'll have to see
they are
that.
good. Yeah.
Well, now, Johnny, you've got a little plaque on, and with my nearsighted vision, I can't read it too well, but it looks like it says pumpkin on there.
Yeah.
What is that all
My
about?
animal was a pumpkin on CB radio.
Oh, is that your call?
Call number.
This is call letters, KHK 3720, and my animal was a pumpkin.
And you're, okay, well,
And you had to sign off the
Yeah,
radio.
every time you went on, you had to sign off with your call numbers and
okay.
stuff.
Well, what was your name, Dallas?
Beer Buggy. Beer Buggy.
Beer Buggy.
I sold beer wholesale for Slits.
Okay.
And so somebody hung that name on me, and she was Pop Top.
Because the cans popped top at the time. Somebody came up with that and gave it to me.
Okay. Y'all remember your call number?
KGP 2813.
You both had the same one?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a family.
Same call,
Family, yeah.
Okay. Wayne, what was yours?
I knew it was coming.
No.
I was a chainsaw, KIN 2521.
How about that? Okay. Well, really appreciate y'all coming back today and going through this again, and hopefully this time's going to be perfect.
So.
Me too.
Thank you very much.
Yep,
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Good job.
Yeah.